This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to the final bit of London Assembly business for the year, which is the Audit Panel meeting this afternoon. So can I welcome members, officers and the public here in the chamber and watching on the webcast to today's meeting of the Audit Panel. If you could just make sure that your electronic devices are switched off or to silent mode to avoid unnecessary interruptions this afternoon. And can I also ask members to position their microphones so they can be heard clearly by moving it closer to you by picking up from the base, if required, rather than by the neck, I'm informed. So can I start by asking our clerk, Hannah Barlow, if any apologies have been received?
No apologies, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So before we begin, I'd like to welcome all of our guests who will be joining us at various parts of today's meeting. It's quite a long list. So if you just bear with me for 1 second, some in the chamber, some online. So we are joined by Faye Hammond, the Chief Finance Officer of the GLA. We are joined by David Esling, Head of Audit, Assurance and Risk Management at MOPAC. We are joined by Mark Woodley, Group Audit Lead at MOPAC. We are joined online by Karen Welsh, Senior Risk and Assurance Auditor at MOPAC. We are joined in person by Alex Conway, Deputy Greater London Returning Officer for the GLA. online by Daniel Drismler Milgram, Equality and Fairness Manager at the GLA. We are joined online by Nicole Valentinuzzi, Assistant Director, External Relations at the GLA. We are joined online by Melissa Darby, Head of Marketing and Campaigns at the GLA. In person by Tim Steer, who's the Executive Director of Housing and Land at the GLA. In person by Simon Powell, Assistant Director, Land and Development at the GLA. Oh, in fact, that is it. Maybe it's not as many as I thought. It seemed quite a lot. So before we get to our main business, can I just firstly ask the panel to note the recommendations set out at item 2 and ask if members have any other interests to declare? At least one person has to say noted. Noted, good. And can we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of October 2024 to be signed by me as a correct record?
Yeah, agreed.
Good. And can we note the completed action arising from the previous meeting of the panel? Good, excellent. Can we now move on to the main, our first main item of this afternoon, which is a review of our internal audit report. So we are joined in the chamber by David Esling, Head of Audit and Assurance, Mark Woodley, Group Audit Lead from MOPAC, and online by Karen Welsh, the Senior Risk and Assurance Auditor at MOPAC. So David, if I can ask you to introduce each report in turn, and then relevant officers can expand further.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I will take you through our progress report, and the individual reports Mark will take us through the findings and recommendations for each of those. This report and the work summarises the work that we've undertaken in the last couple of months, and we're bringing today the final versions of the external relations, the Communities and Social Policy Unit, Financial Hardship Team follow-up, and the planning arrangements for mayoral and assembly members' elections, and that's the follow-up to the original report, and the governance, GLAP governance, including the management of land assets follow-up. The update report is as in the pack. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. Probably on the counter-fraud work, you'll see in 3.1, it mentions skills bootcamp. This is as reported in previous audit panels. That is now going to the GLA fraud response panel, and we will update you at the next meeting of the outcome of the deliberations with that. Also, just to touch on the National Fraud Initiative. So the work has concluded in that, and we're just currently awaiting for the 2024-25 submissions of data. There's been a slight delay in that due to the IT issues with TfL. However, we anticipate that moving forward, probably, and again, giving you an update at the next panel meeting on how that's proceeding. Also, just to show some good counter-fraud work, this is the GLA Community Counter-Fraud Forum. This is a quarterly meeting, and this meets it was last held on the 17th September, and the group finance and performance were in attendance with that. So we share fraud information across the GLA family, but also wider across London councils as well. So we get good intelligence of factors that we should be considering, and the clients that we obviously oversee should be considering. Also, we've been undertaking some counter-fraud training, and that's primarily been provided to the Digital Experience Unit, and we're looking at rolling out some further training across the GLA once we've spoken to the various directors on that. That's the sort of update that we have for this meeting. Obviously, willing to take any questions, but obviously Mark will take us through the individual reports. So, as I say, willing to take any questions on that, or if you wish to take them on the individual reports, we'll take that forward. I
think we'll follow our usual routine of going appendix by appendix. On the fraud, I think there were 3 further investigations. Presumably we don't have any news about those yet? They're at an early stage.
The 2 ones are at an early stage. Sorry, the 3 further investigations. Yeah, they're at an early stage. So we're just there's some scoping and some early investigative work on those. So we will at the next audit panel you will have more information on exactly where we're looking into those. So we will update accordingly.
Okay. Any other questions on that before we move on to Krupesh?
Are they new cases or existing ones?
They're three new cases, and we're just determining whether they are fraud related. So since it's the early stages of an investigation. So obviously, once we determine if they fall into that category, we will update the panel, as I say, accordingly at the next meeting. Yeah, they're new cases. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I believe that takes us to GLA Internal Audit Progress Report Appendix 1. And so we are now, are we on planning arrangements for the Appendix 2 we're on, aren't we now? Yes. The planning arrangements for the mayoral and assembly member elections 2020. Oh, okay, go on.
Sorry, yeah.
Finish my sentence.
Sorry, yeah. Just to go back to the internal audit performance. So, obviously, just with the awareness of what's going on with internal audits nationwide, really impacting on various local authorities, do we expect to, first of all, just complete that audit on time?
The annual plan that we're currently undertaking. Yes, we do. So in the update to that, you'll see that we've completed 225 days, and for the next quarter, we anticipate that we will fulfil the number of days that we have for the plan. So each of those audits, and if you are taking you back into the beginning of the report, there are 2.4 takes you through the fieldwork that we are currently underway. So we anticipate those reports the fieldwork to be completed by the end of March, and obviously the reporting process will be either March or into the June-July audit panel.
Yep. Faye, you wanted to come in? Yeah.
I was wondering if you might be referring to external audit, statement of accounts, rather than the internal audit, because you were talking about the national picture, so I wondered if that might be what you might want an update on. Yeah, so our external accounts are due to be signed off next month for the previous financial year, so they're in progress. So there are a lot of challenges in the sector in terms of external accounts, but actually given the complexity of the GLA's accounts, I think the great job to be in the position we are actually. We've really got a strong team here at the GLA, so we're quite fortunate because they're a very complex set of accounts. So the latest position is they should be signed off, I think it's round about January time, end of January.
Fantastic. And do you expect that to be without any disclaimers? Because I think
yes, with no disclaimers.
That's
we just had to make a few adjustments around to reflect things that have happened since original, like cyber, for example. We've had to add a few comments in some of those changes, but other than that, it should be clean set of accounts.
Fantastic, thank you.
What I will say is we have, only because you weren't here, we did have some problems with the same external auditor who audits both LLDC and the GLA, different bits of themselves, taking a different opinion on how obviously LLDC largely consists of investment land and how that should be held, and disagreeing with themselves and delaying that for quite some considerable amount of time. But since that doesn't now need to happen again this year anyway, for now, that delay hopefully will not happen. Okay. We now move then on to Appendix 2, the long-awaited Appendix 2, planning arrangements for the mayoral and assembly member elections 2024 follow-up report, for which we are joined by Alex Comic. So the normal routine is our audit colleagues want to give a quick intro, and then you can add something if you wish, Alex.
Okay. We reviewed the planning arrangements for the mayoral and assembly members elections 2024 in January 2024 and concluded a substantial assurance. There has been improvement to the overall control framework since the original review, with the one agreed action partly implemented. A risk register was in place for the 2024 elections and was shared with the elections 2024 steering group. An action plan, which is in place for the 2028 elections, was scheduled with the establishment of the risk register plan between January and March of 2025. It was not possible to obtain evidence of the review of the 2024 elections risk register, as the senior elections manager for the 2024 election had since retired, and it was difficult to locate any review documentation. It has been agreed that reviews of the risk register will be clearly recorded on the risk register, documented and retained. I think Alex is here to ask any other questions as well.
Great. Alex, did you want to add anything else to that?
Only to say...
Oh, sorry, don't forget to put your mic on, the little picture of a person there.
Thank you. Only to say, we do have a copy of the risk register, and which I regularly reviewed with the senior elections officer. What we didn't do and should have done, and will do in future, is add the column that says, and we reviewed it. So it changed over time, but we didn't have the physical evidence of that. The only thing I wanted to add, and you, as you'll be aware, Chair, from your work on the elections review working group, is that the Electoral Commission have since produced their report on the May and the July elections. There were no significant issues there. I think we're looking forward to receiving the Assembly's recommendations, and we'll be considering those as we look to build on a pretty successful election for 2028.
Okay, I think that report is near completion, in actual fact, so there's some good news. I wouldn't like to promise anything before Christmas, but you know. Assemblymember Harani.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to get a bit of clarity on this review documentation, which couldn't be found. Is it evidence of a review having been taken place? So, did any review take place, or is it just the fact that the Deputy Returning Officer didn't document that they had reviewed the work that had already gone on, if that makes sense?
Exactly, and it's that latter thing. So we have the document, which we can share if you're interested.
So you have the document.
But what we did, yes, that's the risk register. That's one of the key documents for our electoral suite of documents for managing an election responsibly that you'd expect to see. But what we didn't do, and it was a recommendation, was add the thing that says, and we've reviewed it at these 3-week intervals, and that's something that we can just do for 2028.
Okay, so I am more assured as a result of that answer, to be honest. But so with the new Deputy Returning Officer due to start, is that work that they'll pick up, or does it not happen at all and happens, in 2028 now?
So we should say, so for avoidance of doubt, Mary Hartley is the Greater London Returning Officer. I'm the Deputy Greater London Returning Officer.
So is he?
The role that we have, in fact, just recruited to, although it's not just doing the paperwork now, is so the previous senior elections manager, who frankly does all the day-to-day organising work for the elections, retired in August. We're recruiting a colleague who, if they take a job, is someone with a great track record in London borough elections, and they will be taking forward the work for 2028, which will include picking up this risk register and the recommendation made here.
Okay. Oh, Alex, Assemblymember Wilson.
You've answered the first part of what I was going to ask in answer to Assemblymember Harani. So the document itself exists and has been found, but it's this kind of evidence of it having been reviewed that kind of grey area. It sounds as if, on this particular instance, it's not really a particularly consequential thing that this has happened, and so that's fine. But I'm just wondering if is this a sort of an isolated incident, or is this sort of symptomatic of a wider kind of issue? When people leave, retire, move on, what kind of processes are there in place for making sure that handover of all documentation and material is in place?
I mean, it's a good issue to raise, because one of the risks with elections is you only do it every 4 years, and people change during that time, and you need some way of... So I think we've worked quite hard, and to be honest, the sort of move towards SharePoint and stuff helps with this, to ensure that we've got a live suite of documents, including this risk register, that people can pick up, because it's quite possible that none of the same people will be managing the 2028 election. So I think we appreciate the importance of that. I mean, as I said in response to the previous question, the issue here really is that we didn't pick it up. I think part of the reason, going back to what Mark was saying, because we had a substantive assurance in January, which was great, probably, but we maybe just took our eye off the ball in the immediate run-up to the election for the need to ensure that the audit reviews were being fully recommended, not just fully implemented, not just, as they've said, partly implemented. So we'll get that right for 2028.
Okay, thanks very much. I don't see any further questions on it, so thank you very much, Alex. That takes us on to the next appendix, Communities and Social Policy Unit Financial Hardship Team Follow-up Report, for which we are joined by Daniel Drismer-Milgram. Sorry, it's hyphenated weirdly across my page here. It's Daniel Drismer-Milgram. My apologies. I try to make a point of getting people's names right. So, Mark, if you want to.
Okay, we reviewed the Financial Hardship Team in February 2024 and concluded an adequate assurance. There's been an improvement to the overall control framework, with 2 agreed actions fully implemented and 1 partly implemented. As a result of this, the assurance rating has moved from adequate to substantial. The findings were the Financial Hardship Team has included standardised single reporting templates in grant agreements to be used by all delivery partners in programme returns. A template to monitor and capture recommendations from external evaluations on funding programmes has been established and is now in use. Standardised action templates to capture and track actions from partnership meetings have also been introduced. The one further action related to the need for the financial hardship team to request quarterly claim form templates to be included in the reports they send. To address this risk, the financial hardship team will introduce an improved tracking system where across programmes they will file invoices alongside the evidence related to that invoice. That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Daniel, who I believe is joining us online, I don't know whether you wanted to add anything before we see if there are any questions? Daniel, well, I think we see you up there.
Hi there. No, nothing really further to add. Very happy to take any questions that panel members may have.
Okay, were there any questions?
Yes, Chair. So I just wanted to ask, in terms of the original recommendation that there be a single reporting return template, why that was felt that was needed when the financial hardship team felt that it wasn't needed?
Sorry, you're talking about in the original audit that was carried out sort of the end of last year. I think it was just due to some of our programmes looking quite different. So the sort of the reporting arrangements put in place being slightly different, and I think that will always be a factor to an extent. But we have just tried to bring in as much consistency as we possibly can. And as Mark said, what we've also tried to do is just make sure we have a single place now that tracks all sort of reporting requirements, evidence requirements, the invoices associated with those requirements, so that that's all easily pulled together in one place.
Thanks. So are those forms now optional or are they mandatory then?
Are you asking
sorry, the return forms, are they, you talk about consistency, so the return forms, are they...
The claim forms?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a point that we have sort of, we sought guidance from our finance business partners and the GLA's grant working group on as well, which is essentially, the use of those claim forms in the grant agreement. So we have bespoke claim forms that that delivery partners can submit as evidence. I think one of the claim forms included in the sort of the standard template grant agreement relates to essentially evidence of costs. That was the point that isn't really appropriate for some of the delivery partners that we have or have grant agreements with. And so we did just seek confirmation and clarity that that was not a mandated form that needs to be completed. So that's something that we've had assurance on from, like I say, our finance business partners and the grants working group.
Okay, so you've got assurance that that element doesn't need to be mandatory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Wilson.
Following on from that, but maybe approaching it from the opposite angle, I think given the recommendation that there should be a standardised set of reporting and templates and so on, but then sort of query why it's acceptable for some organisations to not be mandated to use that. And I was wondering what sort of proportion of the overall volume of funds that get used in this way are going through organisations where they're not required to follow the same level of compliance, and why, given that we're talking about taxpayers' money here, it's not GLA money, it's taxpayers' money. Everything that we spend is taxpayers' money. Why are we working with organisations that are in a fragile situation that can't comply with those higher standards of expectations?
So, I mean, just to be clear, we do have reporting templates and reporting arrangements in place for all of our programmes, and where partners are delivering as part of a programme, that will be standardised. I think what we're saying is that because, for example, one of our programmes might be about the delivery of holiday meals using surplus food, that just inherently is quite a different programme to, say, some of the income maximisation work where we're working with the likes of Citizens Advice. And so the reporting arrangements for those programmes will just inevitably look quite different. The point about I don't think there is an issue around the fragility of organisations that we grant fund, and the due diligence is carried out as you would expect it to be by the finance team. I think the issue that the audit team identified was around the use of one element of the claim form in the standard grant agreement, which essentially asks for evidence of costs having been incurred in order to trigger a payment, and that's what we've had. That's what we've had assurance is not mandatory to use that. All of our grant agreements do have very specific evidencing requirements in order to trigger a payment, and those are set out in full. We've shared those with the audit team. Very happy to follow up with that information with the panel as well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I don't think I have any more questions, so thank you very much for joining us, Daniel, and apologies for mangling your name earlier. That then takes us on to Appendix 4, which is the External Relations Report, which I'll ask Mark to introduce in a moment, and for which we are joined by Nicole Valatinuzzi and Melissa Darby.
Okay. We reviewed the management of the External Relations Unit in carrying out the GLA's marketing work and the effectiveness and the effective provision of campaigns that should support the Mayor's aims and objectives. We concluded a substantial assurance that the control framework is sound and operating effectively to mitigate key risks. In particular, we identified that an annual campaign plan is produced which provides an initial outline of the intended use of resources and the expected general direction of each campaign. Accountabilities, roles and responsibilities within the marketing campaigns team have been clearly defined. An annual central marketing budget is formally approved by the Mayor and published online as a formal decision statement. Clearly documented guidance is in place for budget management, as well as standard templates for recording and monitoring spend against budget. A project approach is in place with clearly documented scoping and planning phases. End of campaign evaluations are completed and include a summary of activities undertaken and an evaluation based on relevant data such as social media statistics, brand engagements, donations and referrals. We had one low-risk action was identified and referred to the need for a formal record to be maintained of all of the budget review meetings between the finance business partner and the marketing campaigns team. This action has now been implemented by the team.
Okay, thank you very much. And Nicole or Melissa, did you want to add anything before we see if there are any questions?
No, nothing to add, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I mean, I suppose, there aren't any questions. I feel bad that you say here there aren't any questions. I mean, I think the reason there aren't any questions is because the audit has found that everything has run smoothly and been well documented and all is right with at least your part of the world. So thank you very much for that. Your reward is there are no questions and you're free to continue with your day. Thank you very much.
Chair, perhaps we could note how fantastic the report is and how well the team have done. So.
We certainly could note that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. And possibly just as a quick, briefly returning to Appendix 2, Alex Conway, I don't want to feel that I'm throwing you out, but I just wanted to let you know that if you didn't wish to spend the rest of the meeting here with us, you're...
literally do my work because there is no space desks.
Fair enough. That's
You're welcome to stay. I thought you were
absolutely fine.
I thought you were interested in the conversation, but there you go.
Okay, in that case, so we now move on to our final appendix in the internal audit report, which is on the GLA land and property governance, including the management of land assets follow-up report, for which we are joined by Simon Powell and Tim Steer. And let me just say, the panel already knows, but for the benefit of those at home, so this report is a follow-up on a report that came to our February meeting. There is both, so there is a public redacted version of that report, and the committee, of course, also has the unredacted version. So it may be that if panel members wish to ask questions about the redacted items, we may need to go into a closed session, but we will, at the very least, as long as possible, not go into a closed session. So, and if members do wish to ask questions on that part of the report, if you can save them up to the end and signal to me, then we can go into a closed session if necessary. So on that point, if I can pass over to Mark, who can introduce the item.
Okay, we reviewed the GLA land and property governance, including the management of land assets in December 2023, and concluded an adequate assurance. From the follow-up, we found that there's been an improvement to the overall control framework since the original review, with 2 agreed actions fully implemented and 1 partly implemented. As a result, the assurance rating for this audit has moved from adequate to substantial. We found that a risk register has been produced, and the risk register was last reviewed in August 2024 and was due to be reviewed again at the GLAP steering group in November 2024. The new loan financing arrangements were agreed with the GLAP steering group, and financial reporting takes place at the GLAP steering group, and details of the repayments of loans in 2025 had been taken into account and reported. The terms of reference for the GLAP steering group have been reviewed and updated, and company law training for GLAP members took place on the 26th of November 2024. Reporting packs of the GLAP steering group are in place and include minutes of meetings, including decisions made and identified actions. An action tracker is in place, including actions identified, action owners, progress and deadlines for clearing actions. Public minutes of the GLAP steering group meetings have been published on the GLA Housing and Land internet page. The one further action related to the need to ensure actions on the actions tracker were cleared in line with the allocated deadline dates. That's the findings of the follow-up.
Mic's off. Thank you very much, Mark. Tim or Simon, did you want to add anything before we see if there are any questions?
I don't think there's a huge amount to add. I just would say that we've got some support from the GLA Secretariat to help us with managing the steering group, and that's been a really big step forward and really helped us with some of this, and I think it will continue to help us in terms of the point about clearing actions in a timely way and so on. That support will really help us in all of that going forward too.
Thank you very much. So if I can kick off with the question. So I know one of the issues last time was around minutes of meetings, minutes of decisions, that kind of thing. Both the auditors and yourself are happy that that's now happening. And I was going to ask you sort of what are the specific things that have changed. It sounds like you effectively just answered that by saying that it's having secretariat support from the GLA that's now making that sort of admin task of just tracking those, publishing them, keeping track, and so on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly that. So it is now supported by the GLA Secretariat. So we've got a forward plan in terms of the items coming forward for each, as far a look ahead as we can in terms of the steering group. We've got all of the actions and decisions and endorsements recorded accurately, and the public minutes are published, as we said, on the website now, on the GLA.
Great.
They're part of the website.
I confess I haven't checked. Perhaps I should have done. So how promptly are they? How often are your meetings, and how promptly are they published?
So the meetings generally take place every month, and the minutes are cleared at the next meeting to go onto the website.
Okay.
So they're done in a timely manner.
Anyone else? Bassam, do you have a question?
Yeah. So when do you expect the terms of reference to have been implemented by?
So we had terms of reference that were implemented and endorsed by the steering group from last December, so December 2023. We've set out that essentially my role as Assistant Director of Land and Development is the owner and custodian of those terms of reference, and that they will be reviewed every March, starting with March 2025.
Excellent. It also referred to not having the risk register. Yeah, when you're hoping to introduce that?
I think from memory we adopted a risk register in July. I think that was the first time it came to the steering group. We also took it earlier this month, actually, sorry. So basically it comes forward on a quarterly basis.
At the moment, there's a business plan and set of accounts in place, and business plan and set of accounts, are they both in place at the moment?
Do you mean a budget?
For GLAP.
Yeah, so there's a budget in place. Also, just to let members know that hopefully today, the next annual report should be being published. So 23-24 should be live on the website as well. Just getting clearance that's actually happened.
Excellent. Good work. And in relation to the SODA, is that the scheme of delegated authority? Is that, again, that's been agreed and in place?
Yeah, so the scheme and delegated authority, of course, to the GLA mayoral decision-making format.
So that's been adopted effectively?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Assemblymember Baffouz. Assemblymember Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, conscious of what you said about the two versions of the report, one redacted, one unredacted, the line that I'd just like a bit of clarification on itself isn't redacted, but I wonder whether the answer might steer it or kind of flow over into something that might be. So this is in the 2023 report, point 3.14, where it talks about debt being repaid on loans from the GLA which have been used to fund loans by GLAP to third parties. What third parties has GLAP been funding loans to? And how does that affect the overall picture on the wider loan that the redacted report does talk about?
So thanks for the question. There are certain loans that are made to third parties through, for example, the land fund, the MHCRG land fund, that are transacted because they are a commercial loan through GLAP. So that's what that is referring to, which are basically they are loans from effectively the GLA is making to third parties, but they're transacted through GLAP.
So that's separate from the wider discussion?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Was that your only question?
Yeah.
Okay. Assemblymember, no questions? Does anybody have any questions on the sort of redacted confidential part of the report? Because I did have one. No? So just me. Can I just apologise now to everyone then that I think... I'm just wondering, perhaps what I will do, since it's just literally me with one question, rather than go through all the rigmarole of going to a private session, we still have a couple of quick items to go through. The clerk has just given me the paragraph I need to read out. Perhaps what I will do is write to you outside of the meeting, rather than spend 15 minutes of our time going into a private session, clearing the hordes from the gallery, and then having to reopen the meeting again. Okay, so are there any, other than my question, which I'll keep to myself for a moment, are there any other questions about the GLAP follow-up report? No? Nope. Okay, in that case, thank you very much, Simon and Alec. Sorry, not Simon and Tim, for joining us for that item. And that is the end of our list of internal audit reports. So that takes us on to item 6, which is the corporate risk register. Are there any points that members wish officers to consider ahead of the next 6 monthly refresh and update? I'm sort of imagining that we might not be dallying very much on these final few items. So in that case, can I ask the panel to note the corporate risk register? Noted. Item 7, which is monitoring of expenses and tangible benefits for the mayor, elected members and senior staff. We now move on to the monitoring of expenses, taxable benefits for the mayor, elected members and senior staff. Do members have any questions or comments? No. So in that case, can we note the taxable benefits and expenses in case of element of repetition here, isn't there? I do apologise. Expenses incurred by the Mayor, London Assembly members and senior staff during the period 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of October 2024. Noted, good. Register of gifts and hospitality for members of staff. Can I ask the panel to note the letter from the monitoring officer regarding the register of gifts and hospitality for members of staff report, which was considered at the panel's meeting on the 17th of October 2024? Noted, good. Item 9, can I ask the panel to note the work programme? Date of next meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m. on the 17th of March 2025 here in the chamber in City Hall. I have no urgent business, so that concludes not only today's meeting but the whole calendar year of Assembly business. So thank you everyone, and see you in 2025.